So Netflix have finally released their Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and overall, I really enjoyed this. Now before we get into the review, guys, remember this is just my own personal review on the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but make sure you leave your comments down below. Whether you enjoyed the movie or even if you didn't enjoy the movie, make sure you let me know, because I do want to see what everyone thought about this newest entry in the series and where you would rank it in your own personal ranking. This one centers around a group of influencers who go to the ghost town of Harlow, Texas and begin to rebuild. Now unfortunately for them, they come face to face with the iconic Leatherface. First and foremost, I will say this is a return to form for the Chainsaw franchise. Over the last week and a half, I did sit down and re-watch every entry in the series itself, and honestly I got quite burnt out by the last entry. The last few entries in particular, they were fairly subpar. They're not great movies if I'm honest, and I just wasn't interested in the franchise anymore. Even when this one got announced, I didn't really care about the movie up until maybe the last week or two. When the trailer came out, it did pique my interest, but I still had some major concerns, and I did go into the movie really not expecting much. But the movie does what it says on the tin. It is a chainsaw movie true and true. There's a hell of a lot of blood, there's a hell of a lot of gore, and it's honestly everything I wanted out of a chainsaw movie. Now, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's still a fun popcorn flick, and it's more than I expected from this Netflix release. My biggest positive with this one though is Leatherface. We see a hell of a lot of Leatherface in this film. He is front and center right from the start to the ending of the film, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed spending more time with his character rather than splitting up the villains with multiple family members. He does a lot of kills in this one, and one thing I really enjoyed were the actual kills themselves. They were gory, they were bloody, and they were probably the most brutal we've gotten in the entire franchise.
Oh, mama.
Some of my favorite kills, there is one at the first half of the movie where a cop gets his arm broken and then he's impaled through the neck with the bone of his arm. I thought that was inventive, and it was just nasty. It was what I wanted again from a chainsaw movie. But people get bludgeoned to death, people get their legs snapped in half, and of course we have that massacre in the bus itself. Probably the first ever massacre we've gotten in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. They also do a really good job of balancing the character. Leatherface has always been this tragic character in a way. He's a character that is a lot more gentle compared to your Freddys and your Jasons, but he is also brutal in his own right. And I actually thought they balanced that really well throughout the entire film. Now, as for the characters, what I will say is they are irritating, they are annoying. From the second they are introduced, I didn't really like any of the characters at all, and I honestly just couldn't wait for them to be killed off. Saying that though, there are still some characters I enjoyed, and they're mainly the people who live in the town itself. The woman taking care of Leatherface, I thought she was a very tragic, sad character, and I think he's a guy working on cars in the actual town itself. He was a great character too. He was a likable character, and immediately when you're introduced to him, I thought of course he will be a family member, but he doesn't turn out to be. He is a character who has a lot more depth to him than you are led to believe at the start of the movie, and there is a nice scene with a teenage girl who's been in a school shooting. He's obviously from Texas, you can imagine his opinion on guns, and they do have a nice back and forth throughout the movie where they actually explore that relationship. So there are characters in this that are likable, but the actual main core group are just your dumb, irritating teenagers, and what's worse, they are these influencers, so it does add an extra layer of annoyance throughout the movie. Still though, as the movie goes on, I did find myself liking some of them a bit more. The character in particular who was in the school shooting, I thought it was an interesting plot dynamic that they added in that you could explore, especially with her going through this traumatic experience while also surviving a previous one. I thought that was quite neat and just something different for the series itself. Now, Sally Hardesty is also brought back, which was a nice connection to the original movie. Looking at the trailer of the movie, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I was actually quite concerned that they were just going to do a copy and paste job of Halloween, but they actually don't. She's not really introduced in this movie properly until the last act. And even when she is introduced, she's not a huge central figure. She is there as a plot point. She does what she needs to, and I enjoyed what they did with her character. Originally, I was quite concerned they were going to do a whole Laurie Strode dynamic on her, be the Sarah Connor type character, because the trailer does push that type of agenda with it, but they don't go down that route. She is that type of character, but she is just a tragic figure who wants revenge on Leatherface. She's gone through this horrible ordeal and he's haunted her for the last 50 years. So I think they actually pulled that off really well. Her plot points are all really interesting. You do care for the character, but she still isn't the main focus of the movie. Instead, that is the new teenagers and Leatherface. So I enjoyed what they did with her. As I said, she comes in the last act, and it's a bit of a mix between Halloween and Scream. What they do with Laurie Strode and Sidney Prescott roll into one. As well as that, one point I think they handled much better than Halloween was Leatherface's relationship with Sally. There was a moment in the movie where she could very clearly kill him, but it's a sad moment where she just wants him to recognize who she is, because he has haunted her for 50 years and he doesn't know who she is at all, and you can see in that moment it slightly breaks her. I think they actually handled that much better than the dynamic between Laurie and Michael in the Halloween series. That got a bit messy and honestly just got a bit confusing whether Michael knew who she was or not, whereas this movie makes it very clear very quick. So I did enjoy bringing her back. As I said, it connected it to the original movie and it felt quite natural. The runtime of the movie is also quite short. It is less than 90 minutes, but it didn't actually feel like that. It is a roller coaster ride. Once you get through that first 30 minutes, it is just carnage and action and pretty much a bloodbath from there. So it is quite quick, but I enjoyed it. I think that's all I really needed for this Chainsaw movie. Still, as I said, it didn't feel like that. It actually felt like a much longer movie than the 90-minute runtime. So I think that's a positive with the movie, and I actually didn't really want it to end. I was having a really good time seeing Leatherface do his thing and really just seeing where this series could go to next. There is also an end credit scene that potentially could set up a sequel, and I'm very surprised I'm saying this. I want to see that sequel. Another thing I did know was that the movie is quite funny. There's actually a few funny scenes peppered in throughout. It's not too much where it makes fun of itself, but there are a few scenes with Leatherface that I laughed out loud.
That's it, bitch!
The bus scene in particular, that whole massacre where they take the picture of him and tell him he's going to be cancelled, was perfect. I love that scene in the movie. Now, the movie does still have negatives. There's a few negatives, particularly with the characters of the movie. They make quite a lot of dumb decisions, especially in the last act of the movie. I thought there was a lot of moments where I just didn't get why they were doing certain things. And also, a lot of the characters were outliving these brutal death scenes they were getting given. Sally in particular gets impaled with a chainsaw and somehow she is still alive. Another guy gets slashed, I think it's in the throat, and he is still able to walk down the street. So there were quite a lot of scenes like that that just were a bit implausible. Even Leatherface himself, he gets shot multiple times in that final act and he does still live to tell the tale. If you look at the Chainsaw series, he's never been that type of character who just comes back. He's not your Michael Myers or your Jason Voorhees. Most times the characters just survive the movie or get away from Leatherface. So I didn't like that they were turning him into this kind of impossibly unstoppable monster that just couldn't die. But for the 9th entry in a horror franchise, I didn't mind those minor details too much. I liked, as I said, that the focus was on Leatherface. I didn't mind the plot point about them kind of rebuilding this town too much. There are a few things I wish we'd seen, particularly the original house. I thought that would have been great for this movie, but with the end credit sequence, we do get a taster of that. So it's exciting to see where this could go. If Netflix really do well with this movie, if it is a hit with fans of the series in particular, then we might actually see quite a lot more slashers coming to streaming service in the future, which would just be exciting. As well as that, we might get another Chainsaw movie in this timeline. I don't mind that. This one honestly was a huge surprise to me. I thought it was bloody, it was gory, it was quite fun, and there was a hell of a lot of action. As well as that, the Sally Hardesty plot point was much better than I expected, and I can't wait to see what they do with the character of Leatherface. But guys, remember, if you enjoyed this movie, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Let me know, did you like it? Did you absolutely hate it? Whatever it is, let's chat about it. And where would you rank this one in your current franchise ranking? Now guys, if you do like this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give it a big thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this one, click any of the links down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.